Yes, I called Chief Jimmy Stewart, Assistant Chief Jimmy Stewart. Would you state your name and occupation for the court, please?
Jimmy Stewart, I'm a police officer for the city of Bossier.
And I believe you are an Assistant Chief of Police for the city of Bossier, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And Chief Stewart, were you called upon to conduct a pre-disciplinary hearing sometime in June of this year on Officer Larry Hawkins?
Yes, sir, I was.
Okay. Have you conducted other pre-disciplinary hearings before?
Yes, sir.
And do you make every effort to conduct those in accordance with the requirements of law?
Yes,
sir. Was that your effort that when you conducted the pre-disciplinary hearing for Officer Hawkins?
Yes, sir.
Now, he has some complaints about that hearing and the way it was conducted. As I understand it, one of his hearings was that he was not allowed, he referred to it as in the back room when other people were testifying.
Yes, sir.
Is that true?
Yes, sir. He was not allowed in when other people were testifying.
What is your understanding of the proper way that that's to be done?
Well, it's all done in I believe in the police officer Bill of Rights. Larry, Officer Hawkins, is allowed to call witnesses and produce evidence. Nowhere in the police officer Bill of Rights does it say that I know of that he's entitled to be in there and listen to other people's testimony. He's allowed to produce evidence and testimony, but it's my understanding he's not allowed to be in there to hear other people's testimony.
And at this stage, we're simply having a pre-disciplinary hearing to determine what recommendations would be made to the chief regarding a disciplinary action, are we not?
Yes, sir.
The complaint has already been sustained by the Internal Affairs Committee, has it not?
Yes, sir.
Now, he talked something, one of his complaints was about having a peer of his choice. Do you know what he's referring to there?
Yes, sir.
How does that work? What do you know about that?
When Chief McWilliams became chief, in the sense of fairness, he decided to change the way the board was. Before, it was made up of the deputy chief touch and the two administrative assistants or people like that. In the sense of fairness, Chief McWilliams decided that he was going to let the person that was actually the subject of the investigation or that the complaint was filed on pick a person to be on their board. That they actually got to pick a person to hear their case and make a recommendation to the chief to get, before a patrolman or a sergeant or even a lieutenant at that point were never picked to be on the board. And therefore the board never got input from that rank on what could have happened or could have took place. They never got that aspect of it until now. And that's what they're allowed to do now. If you're a patrol officer, you get to pick a patrol officer to be on that board. If you're a sergeant, you get to pick a sergeant. If you're a lieutenant, you get to pick a lieutenant, and so forth.
And was he allowed to pick a peer to be on the board?
Yes, sir.
And was that, I believe Officer Siska was the one he picked, was he not?
Yes, sir.
And do you recall what Officer Siska voted to do on that board?
I do.
What was that?
He voted termination.
Okay. Now, I believe one of their other complaints, as I noted here, was that he claimed he had no right to question other witnesses.
That's untrue.
Tell us how that worked.
Every witness that was called, that was questioned before Officer Hawkins went in the room, remained there. And he had the opportunity, in fact, I asked him, do you have any witnesses that you want to call or evidence you want to produce? And in fact, I think he did call Sergeant Gatos. I'd have to go back and listen to it. But he was allowed to question anybody he wanted to call. He could have questioned.
Okay. And you say he was also allowed to call witnesses of his own,
Yes, sir.
and he was allowed to question, the opportunity to question the other witnesses?
If he chose to, yes, sir.
Okay. Was he allowed to have counsel with him at that pre-disciplinary hearing?
Yes, sir, he was.
Okay. He makes a complaint, as I understood it, that his counsel was not allowed to ask questions, but he was made to ask the questions.
That's correct.
Why was that?
Once again, it goes back to the police officer Bill of Rights, and I don't have it with me. I think it's number 4, paragraph C. It says that the police officer or employee, I'm not quoting it verbatim, the police officer or employee shall have the right to counsel or peer representative, and they have the right to offer advice to the police officer or employee, or make a statement of fact about any question asked. Nowhere does it say the peer or the counselor has the right to question any employee, any officer of the police department. It says Larry has the right, I believe, but it does not say the counselor or the peer representative does.
And was that allowed?
For Larry?
Yes.
Yes, sir, if he chose to.
And was it allowed, was he allowed to have his counsel with him?
Yes, sir.
And do you know if she made any suggestions to him about his question?
She did whisper in his ear a couple of times. I couldn't tell you what it was, no, sir. I've been with this.
Chief Stewart, you're talking about the policeman's bill of rights. Are you limiting that to just the Bossier's ordinance policeman's bill of rights, or also the state law?
The state.
Okay. And isn't it true that the state law provides that the police officer or employee officers under the investigation shall have the right to attend the hearing?
I'm sorry?
It says that he has the right to attend the hearing, correct?
He did attend it, yes, ma'am.
He wasn't allowed to attend the entire hearing, though, was he?
I don't think it says that. I could be wrong. I'd have to read it.
That doesn't qualify entire hearing, but it doesn't say partial hearing either, does it?
Oh, ma'am, it's the definition of attend, and that's my interpretation of it.
And how would officer, and it says he can present arguments, present evidence and arguments against it, correct?
He can prevent testimony, yes, ma'am.
And if he's not allowed to sit in at the beginning where you're presenting evidence, how does he know what you've presented for him to dispute?
It's just like a witness. One, it's not a court. It's just like a witness here being sequestered. It's exactly the same.
Well, we didn't excuse, well, I wasn't excused from the room when he was asking witnesses questions.
No, ma'am. But nowhere in there does it say that he has the right to sit in that hearing, in my opinion, in its entirety.
But it does say he has the right to attend that hearing.
Yes, ma'am, he did attend.
At the hearing that took place that day, that was for y'all to decide whether or not to recommend, what kind of discipline y'all thought should be recommended?
He was to make a recommendation, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Was there a prior hearing where you decided to sustain the complaint?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. The complaint was sustained by the Internal Affairs Division.
But how was that done? Is just because Sergeant Gary says it's sustained, it's sustained?
Yes, ma'am.
So Corporal Hawkins wasn't allowed to be around there to get to when, like in kind of hearing for that purposes, was he?
No, there's not a hearing for that, no, ma'am.
That's all the questions I have.